What's up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? Welcome back to another video here, a Budget Monk 119 video where I'm going to be actually doing a spotlight on the nation of Theodoro. This is, for me guys, I'm not going to lie, is not the most high effort video for me. I'm not going to do a full-blown strategy or anything like that, and part of the reason is because of the just heavy RNG elements. But I did want to make sort of a quick, low-effort video, and I hope that you guys appreciate it nonetheless. And I say quick in terms of workload for me, because meddling around, looking for cool nations and, thinking of video concepts and so on, I realized that if you play the nation of Theodoro, Muscovy begins friendly. Now, from my experience, he begins friendly 100% of the time. However, he will very often quickly change his relations from friendly, and therefore making it impossible to acquire this alliance. Now, you can see here that he doesn't want an alliance because he already has too many relations. But for some reason, the AI is kind of geared to where he does change his mind very quickly and wants one additional ally he wants to go over. So I'm going to demonstrate that right now. If we let time continue, boom, he's friendly, he wants an alliance, grab it. Now keep in mind my speed is on low, and I just want to say, speaking of those RNG elements that I mentioned, already this may have not worked for you. So again, I think it's worth making a video, hopefully helping you guys acquire this Gothic Invasion achievement if you have not already acquired it, for various reasons, and that's what I'm going to go into detail why I think this is a good time to do that. However, just like I demonstrated, we got this here. I'm telling you, it's probably about 50% likely to get that alliance. What can happen is he will actually change from friendly before he will want to accept your alliance, if that makes sense. So this is definitely one of those games that you're going to want to kind of just restart, quite frankly, if you... I still think it's worth mentioning, and that's why I'm making this video. Now, merchants cannot actually reach anywhere, so we're just collecting in the 2 nodes that I can reach. And another suggestion that I have is to go for Byzantium as an ally, so we can royal marriage him right off the bat. We're going to improve relations until we grab that alliance. Now, guys, obviously Theodoro is very weak in many ways because their trading region is quite poor and they have very little influence, and it can be very difficult to break into any of your neighbors, considering this is essentially Poland, Lithuania, and Genoa, all being varying degrees of extremely powerful in an offensive war, as Genoa is part of the empire, etc. Meaning, even though the wealth here in Crimea is not that high, it's extremely difficult to actually tap into it significantly. With that being said, even the Orthodox land out here, the development is very low. There's not an outrageous amount of high value resources. It's difficult. You're poorer than most of your competition. But with that being said, the new content out here has fractured this area a little bit, making it that much more realistic to actually enable you to go into this area. So, for example, if we want to go against Emirati, I'll never get these names right, guys, so just forgive me on that. You can see here that this is going to allow us to ally Genoa, who is definitely achievable. And if we wanted, we could call him into a offensive war, promising him land. Now, it's your choice. I kind of recommend actually giving land and not breaking your promise for reasons I'll actually get into later in the video if you're interested. But yeah, definitely going for Byzantium is interesting because he quite often he allies Serbia, and you may find that it does deter the Ottomans to actually attack him with his strength of alliance and make another move. The Ottomans are very much, I've noticed they're very interested in their mission. So right now, my prediction with Conquer the Levant would be that he goes into Dolkadar because he's got a claim here. So this is most likely the first war that he would fight, which is interesting. We can actually rival Jandar, and potentially we could actually go in and snag one of his provinces while the Ottomans are fighting him via Dolkadar here. And we could actually, annex him, get some power projection, and even release him as like a one-province minor if we snag one province, giving us reconquest against the Ottomans. interesting stuff there. But I just want to say that the Theodora has way many options due to being able to grab this with relative consistency, due to the fact that the Ottomans are much weaker. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. They can definitely implode if you're lucky via them attacking Albania or something like that. And the fact that the Mamluks are just much more of a threat, especially if you can maintain the capital and they don't get that empire rank and that cultural union. They can definitely be hindered big time. But in the meantime, Byzantium will allow you, and Georgia, for example, to be safe from Crimean aggression, even if the Muscovites won't back you up for a period of time because they're fighting Novgorod or something to that effect. But with that being said, guys, I'm kind of, you know, it's a hard one. I highly recommend playing Theodoro now because it's much easier. When I actually played and did the Gothic Invasion achievement, there was, I guess, do you see this? That makes the Sea of Azov. This border was more like this, and that meant that you couldn't even fabricate on not only the Ottomans, but I think you couldn't fabricate on any of these nations as well. When I actually did the achievement, I don't even think you could develop your land, because this is development is going to be huge. When you're going for an achievement like this, the Gothic Invasion achievement is to own all of the German provinces in the Old World. German cultured provinces. When you're going for an achievement like that, you don't necessarily need to expand, right? Like, you can just develop, and as long as you're being productive. Back when I played the game, the only real course of action, the only way with any kind of realistic realism you could expand was out through the hordes by utilizing Muscovy, whether directly or indirectly. As he attacks the hordes, you go into this area and you expand out that way. It was just absolutely impossible to acquire any kind of strong diplomacy. Poland was damn near unbreakable. The Ottomans were damn near unbreakable, making like a wall into Europe that you could not get into. And the Muscovites, being Orthodox, were the only consistent kind of our ally. However, they would actually form Russia, and at that point, usually, no matter where you expanded, whatever you grabbed, they would absolutely hate you and flip hostile at that point. Now, a lot of those things have changed. For example, Muscovy, you should be able to maintain him as an ally the entire time, even if you really kind of tread on his toes and take land that he ultimately would like, just because the dynamic of the game is different. And yeah, you used to just not be able to get any diplomacy. I don't think you could develop at the time that I did it either. It was just the worst. It was the worst. I remember just barely holding on, taking victories over the Crimea, and just constantly being poor. There was just nothing I could do. And what you could do now, like I said, is develop. Now, instead of expanding, you know, and being desperate to defeat enemies rather. What I recommend you guys do is definitely focus on the Orthodox region, and there's kind of an old kind of philosophy, if you will, like expand into provinces of your religion and vassalize provinces of another religion so that you don't have to deal with the unrest. That is something I recommend doing. And my recommendation of a subject, if you own this entire region, is actually Arstakhan. Now, if you do that, that's going to actually empower this trading node. But just in general, he's got a lot of core here. And he is a nation that you can easily take one province when the Golden Horde's getting wrecked. Or you might find that the Muscovites rival him. That you could get into Circassia. You could claim on the Golden Horde. Promise the Muscovites land, build a ton of favors with the Muscovites by giving him a lot of land, and releasing Arstakhan for yourself. And yeah, I recommend him because that's kind of expanding out of the Crimean region. But a lot of these small other nations, you might find that they're good rivals, allowing you to continuously go in, take the cash, and keep your power projection high. Very often they become tributaries of the Golden Horde, but if he's getting wrecked, which he will eventually, not a problem. Obviously, you're going to be going for religious ideas, and that also gives you a little bit sort of more incentive to actually vassalize one relatively large nation, and then have these smaller nations kind of prepped to go in and kill them later. Again, try to keep your... Luckily, your air is really nice. Try to keep your power projection up if you can. If you can afford advisors, brilliant. Even if you're, you turn your army maintenance down, develop that land. And definitely what you're looking to do, if it's not already apparent, is go in against Lithuania, whether you promise land or not. Use the Muscovites against Lithuania and break through into Europe. Now, the Crimea can be pulled up into Kiev, so that's especially Kiev itself. That's an interesting place to, as you push forth, it kind of benefits you if you want to move your trading node. However, of course, the other thing, whenever I do a game like this, I always obsess over grabbing Constantinople myself. So there's a lot of options. It's a bloody hard game. But again, I recommend doing it now, guys, because of the fact that you can ally the Muscovites, and because of this region being much more fractured, you can develop your land. I wish you the best of luck, and I'm actually going to add a clip here as I meddle around here on Theodora myself, hoping to do well and have something to show off for you. So good luck, and I hope you enjoyed this video, even though it was a little bit more low effort. Alrighty, guys, so I just finished up my first war here against the Ottomans, believe it or not. Now, you might wonder, how on earth did I defeat the Ottomans? I actually 100%ed them, guys, and I'm going to explain exactly how I did that. Unfortunately, I didn't actually record it. I wasn't going for a sort of full opening move video here with Theodoro, because there's actually so many RNG elements involved. But I just want to say that lately, the Ottomans have been a little bit weaker. I allied Byzantium, as he's really quite easily obtained, and that helps kind of safeguard you against Crimea, but also, yeah, he will actually back you up against the Ottomans, of course, if you offer him land. Now, the Ottomans' first move was going in against Albania. Albania begins guaranteed by Venice, but he was actually allied to Lithuania. He seems very likely to pull at least one significant ally, like Hungary, for example, in the current dynamic of the game. Now, I did consider that Lithuania could have been pulled out of the war if he got personal union by Poland, but as soon as I saw Poland actually decided not to take the PU over him, that's when I made my move against the Ottomans. Now, because the Byzantium is your ally, his troops were here, naturally, and that was providing me vision. Now, the way that I actually defeated the Ottomans is, needless to say, they were embroiled in a difficult war for them, fighting these three nations, and I kept a close eye on his troops, moving my navy over here with my 3 transports that I believe I have. With a navy, I transported everything to Constantinople, I think, but regardless, I had a navy poised here with 3 transports, 3 units inside, and I actually did the opposite tactic of blocking him on the Balkan side. When I saw that all of his troops were on the Balkan side, I declared war, and I moved out to acquire Bigger. Once I acquired Bigger, he no longer owns both sides of the strait, and therefore, because we actually had naval dominance, bringing in the Byzantium navy, I was able to defeat his navy, and keep in mind that he's fighting the Venetian navy as well. He actually was too afraid to pull his navies out at sea, and yeah, he could not cross the strait. So for me, the worst case scenario would have probably been him sieging down Constantinople, but just keep in mind that this fort is a fort level 2. I actually was really lucky, I'm not going to lie, with a Siege General 3. It didn't come into play, but a Siege General could come into play if you were doing a kind of base race. And, of course, blockading meant that I got this fort really quite quickly, whereas he was actually preoccupied fighting other units. And my claim was, of course, this province, because it's the only province that you can actually claim. So, unfortunately, I actually managed to siege up the entire Anatolian side fairly quickly. I tried to get everything I could that wouldn't flip back. Then I was placing units on his fort while I attached the Byzantium troops and was sieging down this fort. Trying to stand on the fort so that they don't flip up. I even transported around to grab these provinces as well, trying to carpet siege every single one of his provinces to prevent him from actually recruiting on the Anatolian side if he was defeated on the Balkan side. Well, as it happens, he did get defeated on the Balkan side, losing to the mighty Skanderbeg with all of his allied troops. And my only concern was that I didn't own a fort on the Balkan side, meaning that what I was thinking about doing, guys, is taking this province, my actual claim, and then trying to annex Jandar afterwards, and then releasing a large Jandari subject, kind of giving us access into the Orthodox land here, where I plan to expand into naturally. That was kind of my backup plan, but I did manage to 100% the Ottomans. Like I said, they did end up losing a battle, and I intentionally was pulling my navy into Constantinople so that they would retreat across the strait, and then pulling my navy out to actually blockade them and stop their retreating progress where they got stack wiped. At that point, we all flooded over. I didn't actually acquire a single fort myself, but I did get some provinces. Once the Albanians actually pieced them out, I was able to siege up his lands and achieve exactly what I wanted to. However, I did have to fight some rebels that were spawning on his land because he had 20 war exhaustion by that stage. However, with attaching the Byzantium troops, I was able to defeat them. Now, in regards to giving Byzantium land, I actually did give him promised land with that precious war score. One thing to consider, guys, is my aggressive expansion is very high. I could have taken more Orthodox land here, but it would have actually potentially created a coalition. So that's something that we cannot afford, guys, for real. And the other thing is, I actually want to call Muscovy in to Lithuania. Now, he's just finished up a war and he doesn't want to go, but we can see here that if we promise him land from Lithuania, he will join. Right now it's because his debt and war exhaustion, the reason he will not join, but he will join. Now, if we promise land to any ally and then we do not give them land, then it destroys your possibility of doing that with any other ally for a long time. It's like 15 years. I don't know the exact number, but it's a long time. It's over a decade. And that's exactly what I plan to do, is go into Lithuania here when he's involved with a war. I don't know what his first move will be, but I'm hoping he looks vulnerable and that Muscovy and myself combined can smash him. But the fact that I'm on the Balkan side makes me feel really, really good, guys. I now have a lot of options, like rivaling Wallachia, who currently has no allies, and yeah, a lot of Orthodox land to be incorporated here, actually giving me some influence in the Constantinople trading region, which is funny. I've got a merchant collecting here because there's nothing else to do with it. But yeah, making my way further and further closer to Europe. So this is kind of the dream, or Europe, the Germany, because we need that German culture if you were to get the Gothic Invasion achievement. And in regards to Byzantium, one last thing. It just so happened I was really fairly lucky that the Ottomans didn't ally anybody significant. So because of that, that really helped me achieve an offensive victory against them. Like, if we were fighting the Crimea, for example, which is quite likely to ally, that would have been rough. AQ would have been not so hard. But yeah, so we really got good RNG in that regard. And that's the reason that I'm actually keeping Byzantium happy for now. He did get one favor when we gave him the capital, and I'm hoping that we can be best friends here. He rivaled the Ottomans. That's pretty cool that he is a valid rival. I like to see that. I am going to turn against him eventually, because this is just too valuable, and we will actually get a cultural union over the entire Greek land once we become an empire. So I do plan to eventually become Byzantium effectively, and then push my way into Germany. But I'm keeping him for now because, of course, he's going to help us even with just regular favors, not promising him land. He's going to help us in an offensive war against the Ottomans, which is going to be key, using his navy to blockade the strait, but also just helping us against whomever the Ottomans ally. So my plan from here is to go into Wallachia, take his cash, and if he doesn't ally anybody, he should be easy enough, and giving us some nice power projection. And I noticed that Georgia actually got fully annexed, which is It's a big shame, guys. It's a big shame. It seems fairly unlikely that they will just get annexed, but there you go. More of the Orthodox provinces begin to dissipate. But a really, really good and I will say lucky start for me myself here. Definitely keep in mind that you can keep re-rolling the early game and trying to do creative things depending on the move that the Ottomans make, because they're certainly less powerful in this patch. And yeah, they're in a pretty rough spot, man. Especially considering that they do not have the capital. They're not going to form the Union, and I suspect that at some point the Mamluks will kind of wreck their face, making my life really easy going into the future. So I'm sitting here, guys, declaring war on Wallachia. Pretty standard stuff. He's my rival. Going to get some nice power projection. Unfortunately, going over my force limit. It's costed me 2 loans so far, but he does have quite a lot of money, so I'm going to be able to pay most of that off from the war itself. Life's good, but interestingly, Serbia declared war on the Ottomans. Just YOLO. Obviously, he was in really bad shape. His manpower was low and his war resource was extremely high. But the Serbs just YOLO went in by himself. Now, he obviously the Ottomans were actually trapped. The Ottomans were trapped, so he managed to kind of massage stuff up. He did actually go for military access, and I thought, you dummy Serbia, he was done at that point. However, somehow the Ottomans, some rebels have spawned here, and the Ottomans actually have gone into a crisis of a peasants' war, and the Ottomans actually left him. They left him, so he's got a fort, and he's got 51 war score, and I suggest that the Ottomans have low enthusiasm. So that is hilarious. We're about to see the Serbs self-autonomously defeat the Ottomans, I suppose. And that is going to basically, ironically, balkanize, I guess, fracture the Balkans area between Orthodox powers, so small powers. Probably, although I'm not that powerful in my own right, it's probably just about ideal for me to be able to actually grab this land with separate truces, although they are allied together, Byzantium and Serbia. So very interesting, but I thought I would just show you guys that I, myself, personally am having a really crazy game, and I really hope that, genuinely, that if you guys do try to achieve this achievement now, that you also have a enjoyable experience.